Out of the thousands of people I've spoke to, many have said that they've been rushed into treatment immediately, sometimes having surgery as soon as the very next day. And there has been little discussion, if any at all, about what their choices are and how to actually heal their body from cancer.
They are being told that they gotta start the chemotherapy immediately, like yesterday, not even today or tomorrow, or they're gonna die soon.
Yeah, that's closing the sale. These doctors are like storm windows and storm door salesmen, citing, you know what I mean? Oh, you got to do this right away, man. This will save your life. This is a Widowmaker, you know, that type of thing. They lie.
There was a study in Cochin in Germany some years ago where they had women over 80 years of age with breast cancer. 50% of these were operated, had radiation. The other 50% were sent home without any kind of treatment. And who lived the longest? Those who had no treatment at all lived averagely 11 months longer than those who were treated.
If I look into today's standard protocols for patients with metastasized cancer, I have the question, why should we extend the patient's life with questionable 1 to 2 to 3 months with a treatment that ruins their quality of life?
More than 40 years ago, Nixon declared war on cancer. Now, did it work? Obviously not. We have a horrible situation today where first we cause cancer by our treatments, we stop the functioning of the body's ability to heal itself, and we even cause mutations in healthy cells that are very, very difficult to treat.
I can't tell you how many of my clients come to me and have had mastectomies. That's the removal of the breasts, or double mastectomies. When there is no research that there is any life extension removing the breasts, and these women are scarred for life. That's how medieval conventional medicine is.
Cardiovascular surgeon Dean Ornish in California has revealed a very interesting study on genes. He looked at a whole series of prostate cancer patients, and instead of giving them conventional medical treatment, he helped them by changing their lifestyle, giving them a better diet, giving them processes to meditate, turning their stress responses into more favorable responses, just giving them a way to handle life. What was very interesting is, after several months of just changing the lifestyle and behavior, he looked at the genetic readout of the patients and compared it to the genetic readout before he started the process. He found that 500 genes changed their readout simply by changing lifestyle.
And this is only possible if we take care of the causes of cancer. In other words, we have to detoxify the patient, we have to care for a better metabolization of the nutrients, we have to improve the liver function, we have to take care of allergies and infections, we have to take care of dental problems that might impair the patient's immune system, and we have to give a proper diet that provides all the nutrients and substances a human being needs in order to maintain its health.
We will have to peel the onion and uncover what the source of your issue is.
Our environment, our internal, our household environment is a major source of some big problems. We get greater toxic exposure from within our house than from without our house. So think about that. We get more toxic exposure by what we're cleaning our house with, what we're putting on ourselves, what we're spraying, what we're freshening the air with, what we are exposed to through the world of the EMFs, all the wireless devices, all the electrical devices, which is creating a condition called dirty electricity, which is impacting our body. There are things that we bring into our home that are outgassing chemicals. Our computers are outgassing PBDE, a flame retardant. They built it into the computers. When it heats up, it outgasses. We have synthetic flooring, it outgasses. We have clothing that's impregnated with this flame retardant that we are outgassing or wearing and gets into our bodies.
We're putting on lotions and makeup and chemicals on a daily basis, and then we have air pollution and heavy metals and household cleaners, a number of toxins. We're overloaded.
We're surrounded. There's no escape.
The primary things that cause people toxins that are extremely toxic, 1,000 times more toxic than just normal bacteria, are root canal filled teeth and cavitation sites in your jaw where you've had wisdom teeth removed. And not just wisdom teeth, but any extraction can cause this. But generally what it is necrosis of the jawbone, where the infection that is there when you have a tooth removed, frequently the infection is of the ligament that surrounds the tooth and holds it into the jaw. So when the jawbone grows back over this hole where the tooth has been, it doesn't completely close. And this is what's called a cavitation, which means simply a hole in your jaw which is infected.
I tested 150 breast cancer patients, and 97% of them, they had root canals.
50% in the reversal of cancer is in the mouth. Yet conventional medicine ignores it, and most alternative doctors ignore it. And yet, in a case of breast cancer, 95% of females with breast cancer have a dental involvement.
Every root canal is infected, just by the nature of it being a root canal filled tooth. The result of that is simply this becomes a factory for anaerobic bacteria, which are extremely toxic. They are bacteria that can survive without oxygen, without the circulation, and they put out something called thioethers, which can literally get from the dentin, which is where these bacteria live inside the enamel, and it's full of millions of little tubules where these bacteria can live, and they thrive there, and they put out this gas, and it goes literally through the enamel of the tooth and down through the root of the tooth into the jawbone, and it completely circulates to all organs in your body. And once you get challenged in any way with any kind of a emotional challenge or some other challenge to your immune system, this toxin load gets overwhelming.
It is interesting to see that in the United Kingdom they send out a new policy to crematoriums how to cremate bodies with amalgam mercury fillings in the teeth, because the fact that amalgam fillings excrete vapors with toxic amalgam and mercury gases that could be a hazard for the environment is a very interesting point. And yet they tell us it's safe to put amalgam fillings in the teeth of our children.
Heavy metals very often make neurological issues, or multiple sclerosis, or it can also create breast cancer.
We are all exposed to lead and mercury from burning of coal that is dumped into the ocean. Imagine nowadays people have 1,000 times more lead in the body than only 400 years ago.
If the patient has a toxic overload in the body, that injures the gut system, that causes leaky gut syndrome, that is weakening the immune system, that is injuring the liver metabolism, and it is a very strong danger for our brain cells.
Very high levels of mercury or arsenic or aluminium, and this can lead to prostate cancer. This can lead to bladder cancer and others. Or lead can lead to intestinal cancer, but also chronic intestinal disease.
We know that chronic inflammation is a situation that stimulates cancer cells to grow and to behave more aggressively. In an inflamed tissue, the growth rate and the proliferation, the time that it takes to double the amount of cancer cells is much, much shorter. In other words, the cancer cells grow faster in inflamed areas, in inflamed tissues.
And where is the chronic inflammatory situation? Normally in our biggest organ, which is the intestines.
So everything that reduces the degree of inflammation in a tissue and in our body is helpful if we treat somebody with cancer.
They have to immediately stop eating all the foods that their cancer cells love. Gee, what a novel concept. If my cancer cell loves it, I probably shouldn't be eating it. Okay, then you have to teach them what those foods are. Cancer cells, and this is not an opinion now, this is documented medical fact. Cancer cells are sugar metabolic cells. Cancer cells love sugar. And for any physician that doesn't know that cancer cells love sugar, that physician needs to immediately lose his or her license. And the reason is because they know that the way we find metastases around the body is with a positron emission tomograph, a PET scan. What is a PET scan? You radio label sugar, so we now have radioactive glucose. We inject it into the person's body. The cancer cells go, oh, my favorite food, thank you. They gobble it up. And now the tumors are all radioactive, and they glow on the tomograph, on the PET scan. So it's used in their diagnostic tool. And so for them not to know this is the most ignorant thing that you can possibly have. So don't worry about your food. Yeah, each you know, you're dying anyway. You know, we don't know how many months you have left to live. So eat your cookies, eat your candy, you know, have your milkshakes. Don't worry about that. And they just did a PET scan, and they know that they're telling the person to feed the cancer cells and make them as happy as they can be, which is really, really stupid.
You know, we all know sugar is not good for cancer, but unfortunately a lot of good oncologists don't practice that, and the patients have no knowledge of importance of diet. And we all know that sugar is directly affecting the cancer growth and indirectly through insulin resistance, and you know, getting more insulin in their body is encouraging the cancer growth. But usually the oncologists don't want to address that.
And what do oncologists have in their waiting room and their chemotherapy infusion room? Cookies and Tootsie Rolls. One my patient just told me. You cannot have sugar because sugar feeds cancer. We know that a cancer cell has 96 receptor sites and a normal cell has 4.
I have been to hospitals, this real major hospitals that they treat cancer patients, and amazingly when you look at their food menu, you see 5 pages of desserts, and some of them even include wine in their menus.
Alcohol is a no-no. Alcohol feeds sugar. Sugar feeds cancer. That's how cancer eats.
To me, that means that we are pushing them to die faster, quicker, and we are promoting their death. In other words, we are promoting their illnesses.
Besides sugar, there are other dangers in our daily diet, food sensitivities. Many of our patients suffer from gluten intolerance and from dairy intolerance.
If our patients are dealing with strong food intolerances, like this patient, he has a strong intolerance against gluten, then the immune system is blocked or is weakened for the patient's defense against the cancer cells. So it is absolutely necessary to free him from this warfield in the gut and to have all the energy for the defense against the cancer cells.
The greatest danger with food sensitivities is that you don't feel the symptoms because you eat the food every day that you're sensitive to. If you exclude those foods, like gluten or milk or other nutrients that you might have a sensitivity to, for 3 weeks and then slowly reintroduce them in your diet, you will feel the symptoms. And those symptoms are raised pulse rate, headaches, flash, or a total crash of your well-being and digestive system.
The dairy has a problem in addition that it is the most
frequent food allergen. 60% of all the Americans, nearly 70% of all the Swiss and German patients, as an example, they have a food intolerance to dairy protein.
A lot of antibiotics or pain medication, anti-inflammatory medication in the past leads to a strong dysbiosis of the gut, and in return that causes malabsorption and a total breakdown of the immune system at the end. And we need all the force of the immune system for the defense against the cancer.
Now, plastics are the #1 pollutant in man today.
Bisphenol A is one of the major causes of prostate and breast cancer. You just touch plastic and bisphenol A exudes.
Many of the chemicals found in the environment, the chemicals found in all plastic bottles, the plastic lining of tin cans, dental sealants, this is called bisphenol A. And bisphenol A is ubiquitous in the environment. If you are eating anything out of a can or drinking any water out of a bottle, you probably have bisphenol A going into your body. And bisphenol A is a very potent hormone disruptor. It's an endocrine disruptor. It acts as estrogen.
It is proven that plastics cause cancer, cause heart disease, and cause diabetes, and most likely obesity. They're gumming up all the cells of the membrane of every cell in our body. They're gumming them up. They're replacing that nice membrane of every cell of the trillions of cells in our body that have over 50,000 receptor sites on there, and it's causing tremendous medical problems.
Sherry Tenpenny and Dr. Eisenstein are two websites that, along with Mercola, have done a lot to bring the knowledge base up so that people understand the complexities of the vaccination. The two sides would be A, that not well proven to do any benefit, and increasingly admitted to do harm. So, I mean, since I'm not allowed to kill people, I don't know why vaccine people should be, but they have a special law in this country that says they can kill and the government will pay for all the dead bodies. This is fact. They have no liability at all. So they have no incentive to try to upgrade. Their incentive is to try to get money. So they're going to keep selling the same crap. It's conceivable that vaccines could one day actually work without having to kill people. But it would take somebody having a real need, which would be they didn't want to pay for the dead bodies.
Vaccines all have a variety of chemicals and preservatives in there. The most notorious one happens to be mercury, which is called thimerosal, which is used as a preservative. And mercury is a neurotoxin that has devastating consequences to our health and absolutely is a heavy metal that drives cancers.
A well-functioning body can detoxify heavy metals, plastics, even medication like chemotherapy or vaccination. And if you have lost this ability of the body to detoxify, then you can kill a patient with giving these treatments.
When you get diagnosed with cancer, you wake up to the fact that you're being poisoned and you really want to survive. So you become conscious.
See, toxins were unheard of in 1930. And if you look at the graph of the introduction of toxins, approximately 1930 and really in 1940 to 2010, there's over 83,000 toxins allowed in the environment. They're allowed to be used every single day on our bodies, on babies.
The Google called 10 Americans is enough to depress anybody. In 7 minutes you will learn what is in the average blood of every child born in America today at birth. So they found the names of the neurotoxins, endocrine disruptors, and the names of all of the neurotoxins and carcinogens that are in everybody at birth.
We have to remember that the infant's life did not start when the baby was born, but at least 9 months earlier. It's even so that the egg from the mother, which is produced in the beginning of her life, is waiting for years and is under exposure of different toxins for a very long time.
The baby is a wastebasket for the mother, so all the toxins concentrate in the baby. So whatever mercury she has in her fillings, whatever she's breathing, whatever she has in her diet, and you cannot escape.
Okay, we're talking, have we done the testing on one chemical? Have we done the testing of the synergistic potential of 200 chemicals, of 10 chemicals in a human body?
So bottom line, we are all poisoned. We're on a poisoned planet, and we're not going to enjoy optimal health unless we do something about that.
And what are we going to do? Wait for the nuclear bomb to hit us one day and say, oh my gosh, now we have to do something?
Well, the question about how long will this change take place, and the answer is how serious the crisis is. As crises mount, time changes. That when we are really up against the wall and we don't have 40 years for change, then change will have to happen much faster. So crisis is the drive force of evolution, and the crises that we're facing are causing us to make changes that we don't have 40 years to wait anymore. In 40 years, if we continue what we're doing, we'll be really on the edge of human extinction on this planet. Science has already told us within 40 years, the fish that we use for food will be fished out of the ocean. So imagine a world in 40 years where we don't even have ocean to feed us anymore. A completely different world. We don't have the time. Crisis will accelerate change, and we are now in a very rapid acceleration of new vision, new belief, and new models of health.
With the many people that I've spoken to, there's rarely one that hasn't suffered some kind of emotional trauma previously, whether that's fear, loss, depression, anxiety, but it's something that orthodox medicine rarely considers, and yet we know that these conditions, this emotional response, suppresses the immune system.
We know that denied hopelessness precedes cancer.
There's some kind of an emotional event or a period of stress, emotional stress that went on for weeks or months sometimes, or it could be an event like the loss of a child or a difficult divorce, taking care of an elderly relative with Alzheimer's, things that stress people beyond their normal stress, daily stress. This produces cortisol, which you may be familiar with. It's a hormone produced by our endocrine system to cope with stress. It's a very acid substance, and when you get cortisol in your body, you make it more friendly to cancer cells because they like an acid environment. And of course it challenges your immune system to where it's weaker than it should be, and the cancer will get out of control where it may not have otherwise.
It's okay to feel all the feelings. It's very healthy to feel everything, you know, anger, frustration, sadness, everything. But when it becomes chronic, when it becomes the only thing they feel, then there's something wrong. There's no flexibility in that system, and we need to create that flexibility.
Because we assume if there's some chronic, unhealthy emotional state that people continue to feel and experience over time, that it's going to be important for them to look at the beliefs that are driving that emotional state.
The most important question is, do you want to live and do you have the desire to live? Then I can proceed. Otherwise, it's hard to proceed.
But everybody wants to live.
No. Not every person has a desire to live. No. Some people say, you know what, I'm tired and I've lived my life and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You have patients like that.
I have enough people where we have helped reverse disease without reversing the things that are going lousy in their life, that I know that what it does is it knocks things down, and therefore it could be the whole reason somebody dies.
The concept is actually quite easy. Imagine your life is like a container that you fill every day with what you eat, drink, breathe, think, and believe. And it's up to you whether you want to become a trash bin or a treasure chest.
Exercise, exercise, exercise. It's just like chemo, it's killing cancer cells, it's stimulating the immune system.
Exercise reduces cancer 50%, okay? It's absolutely, it's not optional. It's not optional. It's mandatory.
We know that exercise is chemotherapy without side effects.
One of the treatments that is normally completely ignored is oxygen. No matter how you bring oxygen into your body, by being in the woods, by jogging, by doing exercises, by cycling on the bicycle, by medical treatments as in our clinic, it is of crucial importance.
We do the ionized oxygen, which we can give directly, the pure ionized oxygen, which we can give directly intravenous. Normally the patients get this every day, after or before or with the infusions.
What sounds odd in the beginning, to inject a gas, oxygen, is actually something that is done in Germany and in German clinics since the 70s.
The whole idea for using the hyperbaric chamber is to saturate the tissues with oxygen and to facilitate the absorption of the oxygen so that the patient can use that in their best help with the defense mechanisms for the immune system, as well as in the facilitation of the detoxification mechanisms that the body needs to use. So for example, the white blood cell operates on what's called a respiratory burst, which requires oxygen in order to provide the cytotoxic, the killing effect of the white blood cell. It's totally oxygen dependent, and so a lack of oxygen is going to take away the defense system of the white blood cell. So by saturating the patient with more oxygen, we're actually arming the white blood cells so that they can defend the body more adequately against infection.
We use ozone therapy to enhance the patient's immune system, to take care of parasites, viruses and bacteria, and to enhance the oxygen uptake in the patient's tissues.
Healthy cells, they have mitochondria and they can utilize, they even need to utilize oxygen. Cancer cells, they fall apart with oxygen. So we give oxygenation treatment on the cancer patients.
It's a very simple and affordable method. We take 100 milliliters of the patient's blood in a vacuum flask and mix it with some milliliters of ozone gas, and then we re-inject that solution in the patient's bloodstream where it develops its magnificent effect.
According to what cancer he has or she has, we give local, for example the breast cancer, I inject ozone directly around and into. So this high concentration destroys the cancer tissue.
The research is showing that we all have to be on a lot more vitamin D.
Cancer can be caused by over or underexposure to sunshine. And it even can be caused by the toxins in the sun cream.
So the safety is clear that many people could be taking 10,000 every day of their life. We've been, most of us, getting 400 units. So if you get vitamin D, this is 5,000 a day. And we've been able to document that this is drastically lowering how much colon cancer, how much breast cancer there is in the world.
And we learned that it is very, very common that cancer patients have very low vitamin D3 levels in their blood. By giving them vitamin D3 supplementation, we not even support their bone function, but we do something against the risk of relapse, and we support the immune system.
So I don't want people being afraid to use the sun, because the physics of keeping us alive, laser is just light amplified. Light and heat and electricity and magnetism are part of staying alive. So to make you afraid to be outdoors is cheating you because you need the negative ions, you need all the things.
Once the body pH goes into acidity, the blood is unable to transport oxygen, and the whole metabolism goes into a fermentative situation instead of oxidative energy production. And the only thing tissues and cells can do with fermentative energy is grow and split and grow and split and grow and split. That's cancer. And we can now prove that virtually every patient who comes in with cancer has a pH below 7, acidity, and within 1 week on the Gerson therapy, the pH is above 7. And they're healing, and tumors shrink, and pain goes away. Okay? It's that simple.
If we eat lots of coffee and hamburgers and chocolate and sweets and desserts and packaged foods and chemically laden foods, our body's going to be acidic because the body, you're straining the body tremendously. You're asking the body to do unreasonable acts of biochemistry.
One diet certainly doesn't fit all. That means when the patient arrives with obesity, chronic inflammation, high toxic load, acidity, we have to give a plant-based alkaline nutrition. On the other hand, when the patient arrives with cachexis, then we have to give him protein and high-fat based nutrition to bring back the muscle mass and the body weight and to give him the best quality of life during the treatments.
The Gerson therapy, first of all, sees and understands disease as coming from 2 basic major factors: toxicity and deficiency. And in order to heal, we have to deal with both those factors as effectively and fast as possible. Deficiency being the damaged food, the toxic food, the food that's grown on artificial fertilizer, the food that's processed and canned and jarred and pickled and preserved, and all of that is deficient in nutrients. Secondly, toxicity from all the poisons that are sprayed on the soil and in the water and in the air and all of the other toxins. We have to deal with both those factors, and we're able to do that extremely well. We avoid anything that's toxic and unnatural. Everything that's used in the Gerson therapy is organic, freshly grown, freshly prepared. Nothing is canned, jarred, pickled, preserved, frozen, bottled, emulsified, or anything like that. There are no chemical additives. So everything is fresh and living. And then when the body starts to function, it first throws out the toxins and then it kills the tumor tissue. It's full of poison. We have to detoxify. And that's done partly with the juices and partly with the coffee enemas. Now, part of restoring and rebuilding the body, we cannot do fast enough with the organic food. We give, in addition to the organic food, enzymes and nutrients like the liver extract. The liver has to be restored and rehabilitated. Cancer grows quickly, so we got to get ahead of it. And in order to do that, we try to get as many things together. That's the crude liver extract, the pancreatic enzymes, the coenzyme Q10, and so on. So we do, in addition, use nutrients to help to nourish those seriously damaged organ systems, further damaged by the doctors with chemotherapy.
If the body can't get rid of poisons, It's not going to work. It isn't going to work.
Detoxification is tricky, and therefore it's so important to know what type of detoxification problems our patient has. If the liver detoxification is impaired, we normally use nutrigenomic supplements to enhance liver detoxification. Or we can take a detour. The list of detoxification methods is long. In our clinic we use magnetic clay baths, zeolite baths, EDTA baths, far infrared sauna, chelation therapies, sublingual zeolite spray, coffee enemas, colonics, magnesium, dry scrubbing, hyperthermia, massages, supplements, and so on. The most important part is that those treatments are rotated to get rid of a large variety of toxins.
Gene tests to see how well the person can detoxify. We have the typical detox gene tests, for example glutathione transferase or epoxide hydrolase or folate transferase. These are the important enzymes which are genetically steered. It's a detox gene, and you can change something. When you have this gene lacking, we have to detoxify on other pathways so that the body still detoxifies on the other road.
If you have elevated blood sugar, your mind and emotions are very imbalanced, just with one problem. Just the deficiency in essential fatty acids. Your brain and mind is dulled. Just not having enough oils for the brain. Having deficiency in thyroid hormone or any kind of other hormone, the brain cannot function like it's supposed to function. So just one deficiency will create tremendous havoc on the brain, which controls the rest of the body.
If somebody thinks vitamins don't work, it's because they don't have the knowledge. Bruce Ames has got all the specific papers out to prove that the level of nutrients in some people you might never function optimally without 100 times more niacin. So there are these unique things that nutrients can do. So if anybody says that nutrients are a waste of time, they're missing it. And our president is Dr. Jean Driscoll. She's a radiologist at the University of Kansas Medical School, and she's actually got the full FDA approval for us to be treating breast cancer with vitamin C.
In our experience, it starts with 30 grams intravenously. So 30 grams of sodium ascorbate, the neutral form that is injectable. Ascorbic acid is not injectable, it is too acidic, so you have to neutralize it with sodium bicarbonate, and you can literally raise the dosage up to 60, in extreme cases 75 or 90 grams intravenously. We have to do a series of 60 gram or 75 gram infusions in order to achieve the goal we aim at, that is reduction of cancerous tumors.
For example, also with cancer cells, what we're doing here in the center is we're providing patients with intravenous vitamin C, and then we're potentiating the effect of the intravenous vitamin C by putting them in the hyperbaric chamber. And so the tumor, as it's taking up the large amounts of vitamin C, then can't process the hydrogen peroxide, and so it basically poisons the mechanism of the cell. By poisoning the mechanism of the cell, we're creating an apoptotic mechanism, killing off the cancer cells themselves. So vitamin C then can actually have a tumoricidal effect besides an immune white blood cell potentiating effect.
And so there are two oxidizing agents in high-dose vitamin C that I use on everybody. When nothing else is around, grab vitamin C. Take as much as you can. But vitamin C always causes intracellular increase of hydrogen peroxide because particularly the cancer cell, the cancer cell is such a hog for sugar. It's got so many sugar receptors, and it gets fooled. It thinks the vitamin C is sugar. And so it just takes it in. And so you got a great setup. Because C is still the quickest way for people who don't understand anything else to stay alive. It's not a cure, but it buys you the time.
One of the things that makes us sick is undigested protein.
Well, the work that, again, William Donald Kelly did on enzymes, and which is now being continued forward with even NIH approval in some cases on pancreatic cancer and getting better results than chemo ever has, is very high dose protein digesting or pancreatic type enzymes that it in whatever way is often able to digest the exterior protection that the cancer cell, or tumor actually, not the cell, has put on itself. When it's just a cell, it can get gotten easily. Once it becomes a tumor, it starts protecting itself. And then the second are specific targeted immune system products. So I have maybe 40 or 50 different products that really would be looked at as immune system products. I've got 7 or 8 different mushrooms, 2 or 3 different herbs, a couple of other different types of combinations, which absolutely increase the body's ability to do what we want it to do, and we bring in the ones that are targeted to that individual.
The second line of the Sanum is a specific immune activator. They have bacterial extracts, but not living bacteria wall extracts, which produce a stimulation for, according to which one you use, the lymph cells, the granulocytes, the monocytes. And that's why we can produce in our patient's body, with the Sanum remedies, we can produce the dendritic cells, because they activate the monocytes. Intravenous infusions, IVs. And this is the specialty of Paracelsus Clinic. We developed cancer IVs, we developed detoxification IVs, we developed neurological upbuilding IVs. And according to what they are for, they have different ingredients.
In the center of our biological treatments, we have hyperthermia and infusional therapy, and this is a very, very powerful combination with synergistic effects. We have a large variety of biological anti-cancer substances that we administer intravenously, and we do that on a daily basis for 2 to 3 weeks when the patients receive the treatments at our clinic. The most important anti-cancer drugs that we use are high-dosage vitamin C, amygdalin, which is apricot kernel extract, artesunate, which is a molecule from Chinese wormwood. We use even DCA, dichloric acid, which is an organic salt, or we use an antibiotic called taurolidine. And to know which substance fits the most for an individual patient, it is very clever to do a chemosensitivity test before the treatment.
There are hundreds of natural substances in the defense against cancer, but the main problem is to get a therapeutical dosage in the blood which can effectively attack tumor cells. And so we prefer in general the IV application, and as an example we use the IV form from curcumin, brand new. It is very strong anti-inflammatory. It causes strong apoptosis of tumor cells, and especially it blocks the angiogenesis of tumor cells. And so we have in the IV form a high efficient natural substance in the defense against cancer cells.
And these chemosensitivity tests show us the degree of anti-cancer effect of several agents. In this case, a patient with liver carcinoma showed a highly receptive situation for Chinese wormwood, whereas ascorbic acid was not that powerful for his special condition. So In order to know which one is best, this chemosensitivity test really helps us to choose the best combination or the best drug.
There are so many natural remedies in the fight against cancer cells, but we have to see clearly if it works or not for every patient. So we must be open for these natural substances, but we have to look clearly if it works in a time period of 2 or 3 weeks, and then we have to change our treatment plan when it doesn't work.
GCMAF, which activates, well, it is anti the macrophage blockage. Nagalase blocks the white blood cells. Cancer patients, they have a higher Nagalase index, which is a substance which blocks the macrophages, the cancer-eating cells, the white blood cells. And we have an antagonist to this Nagalase, it's Nagalase inhibitor, which is called GCMAF. It's an injection which we give every week, normally 1 per week or 2 per week. Disadvantage, it's rather on the expensive side, but still not comparable with chemotherapy. And it only works if the patient has Nagalase increased. That's why we test these Nagalase values in the patient's body. And if they have high values, we know the white blood cells are blocked and the immune system can't go to eat the cancer cells. Then we give it.
Because if a cancer cell has more than 6 cancer cells distance to a blood vessel, it will not get nutrition enough and it will die. So those tumors, they will grow in the periphery and fall together in the middle, so they do not become smaller, they're bigger. So that can go on for 10, 20, 30 years, maybe it will never grow. But one day it happens for many, all those who get a cancer tumor, that these tumors start to produce growth factors, VEGF, FGF, PGF, and these growth factors are going down to the blood vessel here, to the receptor on the blood vessel here, all the receptors just like a keyhole, and they're attaching themselves to these receptors. And then they are causing some specific biochemical events in the wall here of the blood vessel, and one day we see this process. A new vessel is starting to grow in the direction of the cancer, and that's what you see here. Now it has established contact with the cancer tumor. And of course not only one vessel, but many vessels. So now the tumor gets something to eat all the time. So now the cancer really starts to grow bigger than 1 millimeter. And that process here, what you're seeing here, is called angiogenesis, a production of new blood vessels from the existing blood vessels, as we see here. That's why we give cyclophosphamide 50 milligram daily. That's why we give in combination with other angiogenesis inhibitors. We have a lot of angiogenesis inhibitors today, like for instance green tea, just to mention one. You could use at least 500 different angiogenesis inhibitors.
Healthy cells, they have a good, strong cell membrane. And only certain substances they can penetrate. And what they take in and give out is an active absorption or secretion. It's a cellular active function. Not so the cancer cells. They have a very thin, fragile cell membrane. They are more sensible for influences like, for example, heat, like electron shooting and so on. But also oxidative influences. That's why cancer cells, they hate vitamin C, they hate zinc, they hate selenium, because they get destroyed by these oxidative substances. And so next is, because the healthy cell has a good cell membrane, it produces a gap, an electric gap from inside to outside. And this membrane potential is around 80 millivolt. A cancer cell only functions because there is more or less no electromagnetic potential between inside and outside.
From basic biology, we know that all living cells on this planet are electromagnetically charged as long as they live. When a cell dies, its electromagnetic charge goes down, and that does not allow the cell to live anymore. Every living cell needs to exchange ions like sodium and potassium to create a membrane potential, and this membrane potential is of utmost importance for the cell's basic life in order to get nutrients inside the cell or to excrete toxins. We know that cancer cells have a very poor membrane charge, and that it is one of their characteristics to survive with this poor membrane charge in their special way, by dividing themselves very often and by not contributing to the organ's health or to the organism's health anymore. So by inducing a strong electromagnetic field and putting that field on the area where tumor cells hide, we can redifferentiate cancer cells and recharge their membrane. And if we use very powerful electromagnetic waves, like we do with this pulsed electromagnetic field generator, we literally break up the cell membrane of a cancer cell that cannot hold its construction alive when such a strong and powerful electromagnetic shock wave reaches the cell.
And it makes nothing else than a very intensive upbuilding of the membrane potential. And also cells who anyhow are close to fall apart, which cancer cells very often are, they just fall apart.
Healthy cells only get more energy from electromagnetic pulse therapy and function more effectively after the treatment.
Well,
quite a result. So here we see a sample of vivid, moving, well-charged blood cells. We see the red blood cells moving freely. Their membrane charge is so high that they don't stick together. And here you see a white blood cell, a granulocyte. If we magnify it digitally, we see inside the cell the flow of plasma and these granules that are filled with enzymes are in constant movement. And the dark parts here are the cores of the cell, where the DNA molecules are. So compared to what we saw only an hour ago before our patient received the magnetic pulse frequency treatment, the difference is huge. So this was the picture before. And here you see the white blood cell that is compressed to a size not bigger than a red one. And this cell was not moving at all. Over minutes it remained where it was. So for one treatment, this is an awesome result.
There are studies and knowledge that the cells, they have a frequency of vibration. And this pulse gets made by upbuilding, and then it falls apart, falls down, upbuilding. It's like a breathing of the cell, but it's the different cells, they have a different breathing frequency. Now we know that the white blood cells, they have still a frequency on around 8, so we can work anti-inflammatory with the frequency of 8. The normal oxygen uptaking erythrocytes, they have a frequency of about 25. So we can we can change the frequency with our pulsed magnetic field, and when we want to build the oxygen uptake of the blood, we use, which is the anti-cancerous frequency, 25 per hertz. This is per second. And we have several Gauss, you know, it depends how strong the machine is. Our 500 Gauss, which is big. And these matrices, which they sell on a multi-level marketing, they are for the foxes, we say.
So this is a local hyperthermia treatment device that we use every day in the treatment of our cancer patients, and it is one of the central pillars of our multidimensional treatments that we provide here at Arcadia Clinic. Normal cells have an absorption maximum for frequencies that are much higher, in the range of 100 megahertz or even higher. That is normally called microwaves, and we know that from microwave ovens in the kitchens. These microwaves overheat everything that contains water. If we use a lower frequency, like radio waves in this device, 13 megahertz, we have a specific overheating of cancer cells with no damage to healthy cells around the tumor nodules. We know from basic research that is done in laboratories with this device that we can treat a tissue sample with healthy fibric cells and cancer cells in a petri dish and treat the tissue for an hour, and afterwards we see that the cancer cells died and the fibric cells survived the procedure. This is also proven by tests where cancerous tissues were treated with local hyperthermia and investigated after 2 and 3 days, and it was shown that the cancerous tissues were invaded by white blood cells. So the immunostimulation adds an immune effect on top of the heat effect. With heat we make cancer cells more vulnerable for the parallel given infusional therapy, like in your case we have high dosage vitamin C. So cancer cells are more likely to die after infusion therapy when they are overheated. Through the specific overheating, we never see side effects. We can treat tumor areas or metastases even in the brain without doing any harm to the healthy parts of the brain. And as we see, you have an applicator here in your abdomen. I can take the pillow off for a little while. That covers 2/3 of your trunk. Everything that is cancerous and is under this foil is in the resonance field. So we don't have to focus on 1 or 2 spots. We cover a larger portion of your trunk, and wherever there is a cancer cell in this area, we can count with the resonance phenomenon and the local overheating. So if there would be a metastasis here and one here and one here, they all are covered on the one applicator. We don't need to focus on them with a...
I think that's a great thing.
Indiba. Indiba is a company in Barcelona. The company is called Indiba. They produce a device since 30 years which makes a local hypothermia. It heats organs in the depth of the body and also superficial. You can compare it with an iron. When the housewives, they iron. And so it makes, you do like an ironing movement with the metal plate or with a plastic coated plate. And according to what surface and what material you have, you heat more superficially or lower in the body. And it's not that the plate gets hot, the plate doesn't get hot, it only shoots electrons into the deep. And we have such good success that our 3 machines, they are always booked out only for the cancer patient, even though we could treat other things too. Cancer does not stand high temperature.
Is outside the tent, and when the patient is inside, we close the walls here with a zipper, and in this part of the bed we have altogether 4 infrared lamps, and they radiate infrared A waves, which is warmth, the warm part of light. And infrared A penetrates the skin and leads to a gentle overheating of the patient's blood, and through this overheated blood we eventually create fever. The fever we create goes up to 40.5 centigrade, which is around 103 Fahrenheit, 104 Fahrenheit. And this is fever that is comparable to the fever that is produced naturally when we are infected with a virus, for instance. Fever is a very effective and wise reaction that is developed in all mammals and in humans to overcome diseases. And while we have fever, our immune system is very, very active. Why do we treat patients that suffer from cancer with whole body hypothermia? The answer is that whole body hypothermia gives an enormous stimulus to our immune system and our white blood cells, and it creates the production of so-called heat shock proteins in cancer cells that make cancer cells more visible to our immune system.
This makes an increase of the granulocytes or the macrophages, the eater cells which go and eat detritus from the cancer. They eat cancer cells themselves, they attack better. So we have a macrophage activation in the whole body hypothermia.
We increase the blood flow, not only in the area where the tumor cells are in an organ, in a metastasis, but everywhere in the patient's organism, so that we can enhance the effect of parallel given infusional therapy even with this type of hypothermia.
And it keeps about 2 weeks. It's measurable that the granulocytes, they get into a more enzymatic activity for about 2 weeks after a 3 to 4 hours hypothermia. We do it every week, normally once, maximum twice per week, so that it increases more and more the white blood cells activity.
But it is more than that. It is also a very effective way of detoxification, and by perspiring 2 to 3 liters of body fluid, we cleanse the body from toxins through active perspiration.
This sweating is like in infrared sauna also. When we measure the sweat for toxic things, they make a secretion of lipophilic toxins, spray toxins, xenohormones, and so on.
There are many non-toxic treatments for cancer that are very effective and support and enhance the quality of life. And in the combination, they add up to a synergy effect that is even a lot stronger. As everything in life, cancer can be the most dreadful thing that can happen in your life, but it can also be the greatest blessing.
Whatever happens to you here, your family's going to benefit from this. You know, you've got a wake-up call. You've got the cancer symptoms that are a wake-up call for you. But think about all of the advantages your family is going to enjoy from this, learning it at a much younger age than you did about what's necessary, you know, to keep our bodies healthy.
My deeper understanding of cancer is that it is God's drastic but very loving reminder to us to change our way we treat this planet and ourselves, and take care of it in a better way. And once we understand this message, we can pass this earth to our children as the beautiful and life-supporting planet it used to be.